Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about shooting this Palmetto AR-10. This is the PA-10 Gen 3 with this Winchester M118. Okay, so 175 grain. This is the good stuff. This is the premium stuff. Okay, I bought this back in December when. Yeah, it was December of 2023. We're now in March of 2024. Bought this back in December when I first got this this AR-10. However, I did not shoot it. I've done many videos on this Palmetto AR-10 shooting lots of different ammunition. And the reason why I had not shot it is because, first of all, that stuff's really expensive. So before I got to that stuff, which is like $2 a round, right? Something like $35 or $40 for a box of 20 rounds. So before I got to shooting that, I wanted to know, how much, how much of a gun I had here, right? What I had here. So first, like, I had this just with a red dot and a magnifier. Shot that for a while, so I basically learned the gun really good, got familiar with it. And at the same time, I bought this Primary Arms 5-25 by 56 scope, but I put this on a different gun. I put this on an AR-15, and I had it there for a couple of months, like 2 months, again, to familiarize myself with the scope on a gun that I was already familiar with. Okay? And basically, I don't know, something like 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I finally put these two together. And now I basically, I took this gun out to a 1,000 yard range, and shooting this Freedom Munitions 147 grain ammo, I was able to get at 1,000 yards. I got a 22-inch group with 8 out of 10 shots. The other two went off the paper, so that's like a 2.2 MOA, 1,000 yards. Okay, so at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with this gun. Time to pull out the good stuff, right? And see what this gun can shoot. Okay, so let me jump ahead a little bit. And I'm going to show you guys the best group of the day that I got with this ammunition, and we'll talk about how I got there. Okay, so ignore the ones with the circle. That's with the Freedom Munitions. You're just looking at these 3 shots here that have no circles, and this was shot at 200 yards. So at 200 yards, I got a 3-shot group of 1 inch. Okay, so that's a half MOA at 200 yards. Okay, so first of all, now I just kind of wanted to lay that down in case some people don't want to listen to all the details of how I got to this. So now I'm going to go through the details. Okay, so when I started. Okay, I started at 100 yards. Okay, and I basically I took 3 shots. Okay, so I took 3 shots with this Winchester M118, and now these 3 shots here, 1, 2, 3, with the little lines next to them. Okay, so at 100 yards, that's a half-inch group. Okay, so that's 3 shots. I said, wow, this stuff's doing really good. So then I decided, hey, I'm going to take another 3 shots right on top of this. Okay. So I took another 3 shots. First shot went like in that same hole, right? So there's 2 bullets in that hole right there, okay? And then the next one, I jerked, and then the one after that, I jerked. So I screwed up this group over here. Even with me jerking the trigger a little bit, the total group still came out to 1.5 inches, okay? Now, normally when I do these groups, I'll do a 5-shot group, and I'll take the best 4 out of 5. So if I was to do that, just take 4. It's actually 6 shots, but well, actually, if I take the best 4 out of 6, I got a half-inch. What is that? Yeah, half-inch group. But let's take the 5 out of 6, and we've got 1 inch. Okay. And if I include that one, then I open up to 1.5 inches. Okay. So right out of the gate, this thing is shooting pretty good, and I'm noticing though that it is pulling a little bit to the left, and I do have a bubble level on the gun, so I'm making sure that my cant is right. So I'm like, that might just be whatever, So at 100 yards, I'm like, okay, I'm not, I'm gonna ignore that that slightly left ship for a second. But I'm gonna say that that's like that's a pretty good group, right? We got let's call it 1 inch, okay. But if we look at the 3 shots, it's a half-inch group, or 4 shots, it's a half-inch group. So anyway, then I'm like, okay, let's go to 200 yards. But first, before I go to the 200 yards, let me tell you guys this: when I'm shooting this at the 100 yards, I'm like the whole time that I'm shooting, I'm thinking $2 a bullet, $2 a bullet, $2 a bullet. Okay, so I'm like super like on edge with this, not to throw my shots, and that's the reason why I think I was overthinking this a little bit, and that's why I jerked that one and I jerked that one. Okay, so already I'm realizing that. Because here's the thing, I would bought 6 boxes of this stuff because this stuff's expensive, right? So normally when I buy ammunition, I'm buying like 1,000 rounds at a time. So it's like I'll go through it and like I'm not even thinking about the cost of the ammunition. I'm not thinking that, hey, I only have so much of this stuff. With this, I'm actually thinking about like, hey, this stuff's expensive and I don't have too much of it. And I think that it's affecting me. Okay, so that's worth mentioning. Okay, and noting. Okay? So I go to 200 yards. Okay, with this same ammunition, this Winchester M118, and I got like the same thing in my mind. Okay, now this time I took a total of 6 shots. Now this is at 200 yards, and I've got like 4 on the paper, 4 here, and then 2 landed right there. So I've got like a 3-inch group at 200 yards, which is like a 1.5 MOA. Okay, so not terrible, not great. Again, I know that like I'm being like super nervous with this stuff because like I really don't want to screw it up, and I think that's making me screw it up, right? Because normally I'm a lot more relaxed when I'm shooting ammunition because it's not a big deal. If I screw up, I just grab another box and I'll just shoot it again. You know, this I only wanted to shoot 1 box today, right? Because I'm like, okay, you know, this stuff I don't want to like shoot it all today. Okay, I told myself I'm only going to shoot 1 box of it. So I think that's definitely affecting me. Okay, so anyway, we got 3 inches, 3 inches at 200 yards. If we take the best 4 out of, best 5 out of 6, we're like at 2 3/4. So, yeah. So whatever. Okay. So next, I'm like, well, here's the thing. I noticed that at 200 yards, this thing is definitely pulling left. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, the last time I was shooting that AR with different, I've shot it with a couple of different ammunition, American Sniper over here with 2 different types of Freedom ammunition with Tula 308, and this thing is going dead center. And today I'm noticing that it's pulling left. So I'm like, okay, is it the ammunition or is it me? I noticed that the box was sitting a little crooked. I'm like, could it be throwing it off that much? I mean, I got a bubble level on the gun, so I'm like, I mean, the gun's straight relative to gravity. So I said, you know what, let me pull out this Freedom ammunition, and I'm gonna go at 200 yards. I'm gonna take how many shots I take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. Okay, so I'm gonna take 200 yards. I'm gonna take 5 shots, and now of course I'm more relaxed. Throw 5 shots out there. And I get the ones over here with Freedom munitions now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with circles. Okay. Now, I know I did pull this one down. So again, this is like the type of inconsistency that you will see when you're shooting less than premium ammunition. They probably had one of the rounds probably was underloaded. Okay, and that's why this bullet dropped. But still, at 200 yards, even with one of those rounds being a little underloaded, I've got a 5-inch group, which is like 2.5 MOA. All right, and then if we look at the 4 out of 5, I've got a 3-inch group, which is like 1.5 inches. Okay, great. So I'm like, all right, you know, that's not bad. I can live with it. I can kind of live with having 1 flyer out of every 5 rounds. But then I'm like, you know what? This is center, right? This is right down the line, more or less. This is center. You know, just 1 shot a little bit to the left over there, but this is relatively center. I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe the first time I shot this Winchester M118, I don't know, maybe, who knows? Let's just shoot it again. and let's see if it pulls left again. And I shoot it again, and yeah, these 3 shots left. Okay, it's pulling left. So, and actually, the great thing about that scope, it's got a mil scope, so I'm able to measure the distance between here and here. So that's it's like 4 mils, okay, or 4 or 5 mils. So then if I'm shooting this ammunition, the next time I'm shooting it, I'm gonna adjust it right 5 mils. Okay, I'll adjust it right, and I know with that ammunition, with that Winchester M118, 175 grain, I gotta adjust 5 mils to the right. That I can just dial, you know, with the windage turret. And that's how I can shoot that. And then as soon as I'm done shooting that, I go back to where I was. And with this scope, I have the. Let me take this off. So with this scope over here, so the turret is removable, so I have it zeroed. So if I'm shooting that ammunition there, right, where I know that it pulls left, I'm just going to go right, which is this way, 5, right, and shoot it. And then when I'm done, I just go back to 0. Okay, so that's the nice thing about this. Now I keep this cap because normally I don't do this, and you know, now with the top turret, I'm constantly dialing. So that one I have an exposed turret over here with a 0 stop. With this I can dial up and dial down, and it comes back to the 0 that I've set. So this is a great scope for shooting this AR-10. So it's like it took me like 3 months to get around to shooting this ammunition, yeah, I can say that this Palmetto AR-10, it's a half MOA gun. Okay, it's the great thing about it. It's got the stainless steel barrel. Because here's the thing, if you compare this to like 6.5 Creedmoor, people tell me that 6.5 Creedmoor, it's like a 2,500 round, 3,000 round barrel, and then it starts opening up. Now, these are competition shooters talking. So when they say like after 3,000 rounds, it's probably going to open up by maybe a half MOA. You know, not that big of a deal. But the 308, because it's not as fast, right? It doesn't burn through the barrels as fast. So the 308 is, you know, I mean, the competition shooters will say that the 308 is like a 10,000 round barrel. And this one's stainless steel. I'm going to say that's a 20,000 round barrel, you know, because it's stainless steel. You know, it's not something that you typically you normally don't do mag dumps with 308. Okay, so what that means is the barrel doesn't heat up that much, and that's one of the things that eats away at the barrel. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, for most people, I would recommend sticking with the 308 versus a 6.5 Creedmoor. It does have, you know, more recoil. Now, the great thing about this is that it has this Palmetto AR-10 has the adjustable gas system here. All right? And now this is one of the things interesting. This is very interesting. With the 150 grain Freedom munitions, I usually go all the way down, close off. You know, you go clockwise. I close off the gas valve completely, and I come back to the number 1 position. Okay. With the 147 grain, I come back to the 2 position. Okay. If I'm shooting American Sniper, I will usually shoot that in the 2 or dial back to the 3 position, so I get locked back. Okay. With Tula, I have to open it up to the 5th position. There's a total of 17 positions. Okay, so this Palmetto AR-10 is a very flexible. It's a very flexible gas system like that. So you can. So the reason why, because here's the thing. I mean, this thing comes set to like the 12th position, right? 12 out of 17, and the reason they do that is so that it'll just run almost anything. But if you tune it down, you can really soften up the recoil without having to put a muzzle brake on it. So I didn't want to put a muzzle brake on this and make this gun any louder than it is. So that's why I'm constantly like, I have the where is it? Somewhere over here on this table. Where are you? All right, whatever. Oh, here it is. Okay, I have this Allen key, this long Allen key that they give you, and I'm constantly tuning it, and I keep notes of where I need to tune it for the different types of ammunition. So with Tula 308, I opened it up to the 5th position, right? Position 5 out of 17. So with this stuff here today, I'm like, you know what? This is 175 grains. This stuff is kind of probably, you know, this is like going to probably kick a lot. So I went down to the number 1 position where I have the 150 grain Freedom munitions, and the gun wasn't cycling. So I ended up going all the way up to the number 4 position in order for this to cycle and lock back consistently. So that's very interesting. I'm surprised that with this heavier 175 grain bullet, that, you know, compared to like the 150 grain free munitions, which, you know, that's a pretty hot, you know, the 150 grain is pretty hot. I'm surprised that with this stuff, I had to go to the number 4 position, whereas with free munitions, I'm either in position number 1 with 150 grains, or position number 2 with 147 grains, and then with the American Sniper, I'm in position number 3. So I'm surprised that it was underpowered like that, right? Or felt, you know, it was this stuff is under gas for whatever reason. That's just how it works. So at that point, I'm like, that's very interesting. I'm curious now at what speed, you know, what the muzzle energy, what the velocity is on this, and what type of energy we're getting at this. So I pulled out the chronograph today, and today was a hard day because you gotta have a strong sun in order for this thing to get a good reading, and I wasn't getting good. So I took like 8 shots. I only got 1 reading, okay, out of 8 shots. But that's fine because, like, normally I want to do like at least a 5-shot group so I can see the variances. You know, with this thing hitting half MOA groups, I'm satisfied that the groups, that the velocities are going to be very close to each other, right? So I just wanted to get a velocity so I know what this thing is doing. So I'm actually get one reading out of 8 shots I took. So the velocity out of my 20-inch AR-10 from Palmetto, the PA-10 Gen 3, was 2533, okay, 2,533 feet per second on the 175 grain boat tail hollow point. Okay, so that yields an energy of 2495, roughly 2,500 foot-pounds of energy. All right, and a momentum of 63.33. So some interesting things here. As far as energy, if you're looking at the energy number, right, this thing kind of, let's compare it to the, like the Freedom Munitions 150 grain, that energy comes in at like 2671. All right, so it's almost 100. Let's say, you know what, that was the highest number. Let's say the energy of the Freedom Munitions is about 150 foot-pounds more, okay, of the Freedom Munition. So I'm surprised that the heavier 175 grain bullet had an energy that was lower. However, when you look at the momentum number, right, because when you look at energy, you're squaring the velocity, right? But when you look at the momentum number, and the way I describe energy versus momentum, energy is like the whipping action. Like if you take a light whip and you smack it really hard, and it strikes the surface, it hits it, it hits the surface really good. But momentum is more like when you punch something and its ability to drive through. So when you're shooting 308s, I think that, especially at distance, I think the momentum number is more important. So the momentum of this 175 grain M118 was 63.33, right? Let's say 63, compared to the momentum of the Freedom Munitions, which was 60. Okay, so there's about it has a momentum of 3 more, which sounds small, but it's actually significant. The momentum, the difference in this, like a difference of 3 units is actually significant. When you look at, let's say, 9mm, for example, it typically has a momentum of something like 18 or 19. And when you look at the momentum of a 5.56, it has a momentum of like 22. Okay, so there's a really small difference in the difference of the momentum between a 9mm and a 5.56. It's basically about 3 units, right? But when you look at the energy, right? Yeah, the 9mm got an energy of like 350, right? Versus the 5.56, which has an energy of like 1100, 1200. So there's a huge difference in the in the energy, but a very small difference in the momentum, and that kind of explains why, you know, 5.56 is really effective. Let's say at punching, like when it hits one of those steel rims over there, the 5.56 will penetrate it, whereas the 9mm will just bounce off of it, right? But if you're going through barriers, like multiple barriers of, let's say, sheetrock, or I've tested it on like steel drums, the 9mm actually gets more penetration through multiple barriers because it has that momentum, and it actually, you know, it has that ability to like punch. It's a heavier bullet, and it's able to really punch through. So I have found that 9mm actually, when you're going through multiple barriers, you know, it will either match 5.56 or will, in some cases, outdo it. So anyway, so I thought it was interesting how the energy, when I looked at the energy of this M118, the energy was less than the Freedom munitions by about 150 foot-pounds, right? But when you look at the momentum number, which is that ability to punch through, it has a momentum of +3 units, right? So it's better because of that heavier bullet. So I found that very interesting. So the other interesting thing, like obviously we're getting into like some real details here now. Other interesting thing, now I have a 50-yard zero on this 50-yard zero on this Palmetto AR-10, which basically gives you a second zero close to 200 yards. And the actual, interestingly enough, the actual impact, because it's never exactly perfect. So at 200 yards, you can see the Freedom munition is basically coming in, I don't know, about 2 inches high, right? Because you got one low, you got one high. It's about two inches high. That's where like the center of this group is. The Winchester M118 is coming in another 2 inches above that. So it's coming in about 4 inches high. So that's interesting how that's working out. And at the 100 yards with M118, with the 50-yard zero, it's coming in at about, I don't know, 3.5 inches high. So yeah, you never get, you know, when you get like a 50-yard zero and you're supposed to have that second zero 200 yards, I mean, it's never perfect. You got to actually shoot the bullets out there and see what they do, and you can see there's a difference here between what the Freedom munition does. You know, that's averaging at 200 yards. It's actually averaging about 2 inches high. Okay, and the M118 is actually averaging about 4 inches high at 200 yards, and that's using the same hold. I got the chevron right underneath the bullseye. So you gotta actually shoot it. You know, I mean, nothing goes according to theory. Okay, you gotta shoot it and see what it actually does. Now, so in order to hit your target at 1,000 yards, you need to be able to send bullets out there to see where they impact and make corrections. So, practically speaking, this M118, even though it's more accurate, you're probably not going to have enough of this ammunition to be able to shoot for a very long time. Okay, I think I'm better off going out there with, 400 rounds of this stuff, where I can, I can spot my impacts and make corrections. So practically speaking, okay, for us that are paying for this right out of our pockets, right? If you're getting this stuff for free, that's a whole other story. But for those of you guys that are like me, that is actually paying for this stuff, this, even though it's more accurate, it's not very practical. At $35 to $40 for a box of 20, this stuff here for $17.50 that I paid for this, with free shipping, because I get like, I was getting like 800 rounds at a time. This stuff is a lot more practical because you can buy this stuff in bulk and you can go out there and you can shoot. And I was able to get to 1,000 yards with this. I got 8 out of 10 hits, at 22 inches, which is basically a man-sized target, right? I mean, that, I mean, I think that's more practical. So, I mean, yeah, 22 inches at 1,000 yards, that works out to 2.2 MOA on this, right? Let's say 2.5 MOA on this, versus a half MOA. Well, you know what? I think that more bullets is more valuable than, less, more accurate bullets. So that's my opinion on this. Okay. So let me know what you guys think. Okay.